Thank God.
Thank God.
Gee.
Greetings, brothers. My name is Kevin Scott, and I'm the current historian of the Chicago Alumni Chapter. This video is one of a series of interviews that I will be conducting to archive the lives of our Chicago alumni brothers in their own words. Today, I am with past Chicago Alumni Polemarch, Major Armstead. Good evening, Brother Armstead.
Brother Scott, my
Thank
pleasure.
you for this opportunity to ask you a few questions. Would you share some information about your life, different things such as where you were born, where you grew up, family and professional life?
It takes in a lot. Let's see. I grew up in Chicago, born in 1938. Lived in the bucket of blood called on 47th Calumet. Only child. Went to Willard Elementary, DuSable High School, and Chicago Teachers College. It was at Chicago Teachers College that I met some Kappa men, and they encouraged me to pledge the fraternity, and one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Okay, all right. And you're currently retired now?
Yes, I've been retired for 10 years.
Okay.
And
how's that going?
great. Just great.
Well, I haven't yet made it to that point yet, but I hear it's a really good thing. So I'm looking forward to it myself. Tell us what types of things you're interested in and are active in your personal life currently.
Well, let's see. On the professional side, I'm still involved in some consulting with the Chicago Public Schools and with other school districts in and around the country. In addition to that, I've been very involved with the EGIF Foundation of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, which is the philanthropic arm of our chapter. And it allows us to really get involved with community projects, especially those projects affecting our youth. So since we are a undergraduate fraternity, we always continue to recognize that spirit and try to do whatever we can to nurture young men so that they would want to either matriculate through the fraternity or get involved in some other kinds of social endeavors.
Okay. Okay. Now, I think that I probably missed it. At the point in time when you told me that you met other Kappa men, where were you attending school at the time?
Chicago Teachers College.
The Chicago Teachers College, which is now Chicago State University.
Right.
And at that time, what year was it that you met these Kappa men and they showed you the way to go?
Yeah, that was 1957.
1957.
I started pledging the fraternity 1958 and was initiated in March of 1959. So, but there were some very strong, positive Kappa men. I can think of them: Maurice Smith, Robert Brazil. Those are two. Chauncey Bertha. There were just so many guys there. Larry Atkins, Burnell Duransburg, Cornelius Collins, and the list goes on of guys who were very outstanding students, but they were also very strong Kappa men who were involved in a lot of social interaction. And in those days, that translated into, you got to invited to the best parties and was seen with the best young ladies. So, but as we grew and matured, it really evolved into something that talked about paying forward, helping the youth that were coming along.
Right.
And so that's one thing that has kept me pretty much involved in Kappa Alpha Psi for close to 50 years now.
Well, for those of us who are unaware, give us a little bit of a history lesson in terms of how your involvement in school at Chicago Teachers College and meeting these Kappa men how that translated into what particular chapter you were a part of at that time, because Chicago Teachers College didn't have a chapter.
Right.
Educate us on that and tell us how that whole thing came about.
What happened in those days, the Iota chapter was affiliated with the University of Chicago, and there were other chapters that were affiliated with the Illinois Institute of Technology. So that was the Alpha Rho hub. The University of Chicago was the Iota hub, and so there were schools that were basically designated that the students would in fact be Iota initiates and go through the Iota chapter. The other schools really basically were affiliated with Alpha Rho.
Okay.
So we had, for instance, on my line there were 8 of us, called the Excellent 8, and about half of us were affiliated with Iota, the other half with Alpha Rho. And we had a little bit of competition between the 2 undergraduate chapters. But at the same time, when we graduated, the Alpha Rho and Iota members went on to join Chicago alumni, and in some cases, if they moved out of the city, affiliated with other alumni chapters.
Okay. So it's my understanding, as you explained it, that Iota and Alpha Rho were similar to citywide chapters.
Citywide chapters, yes.
That basically encompass certain schools, depending on which school you were at.
Right, right. And basically, we function as a single unit, though. I mean, the guys, there was really no real distinction between the 2 undergraduate chapters. We all felt, I mean, it's hard for me, if I tried to separate and remember who was Alpha Rho and who was Iota, it would be difficult to do so. But we always had the usual bantering of who's the best chapter, blah blah blah, and we that's what Kappa Alpha Psi has always been about, achievement, as you know. So the guys were trying to get one-upsmanship and to do better than the other guys in the other chapters. We had fun stuff, basketball games. At the time, we were very blessed to have a Kappa house at 4752 South Ellis. And so just having the house meant that guys could come in and socialize, get to know each other, and there were various structured activities, dances. We were always inviting different sorority groups over for parties. Other fraternity groups would come in for, say, a beer bust at the time. We would have the old kegs of beer, and
right.
and if we would have a game, a big softball game on Kappa Alpha Day. Those are some of the fondest memories I have. We would have a basketball game, a softball game, a touch football game. Then we would have a picnic at which we would invite a lot of our sweethearts and what have you, and then we would have a big party, and we would have the Kappa House generally held the beer bust. The Alpha House would have the dance, we would flip it. So we were able to do a lot in terms of cementing some very positive relationships that still exist. I mean,
right.
there are some guys who are alphas who remained good friends throughout the years. The one thing that I recall about fraternity in the early days, people always helped each other. Maurice Smith had a job at the college, working in the audiovisual center. I needed a job. He recommended me, I got the job. And we were making a lot of money in those days, about $1.50 an hour. But it was great to have that kind of support. Guys who were taking certain courses would give tutoring and support for us coming along. So it was just great to have that kind of support. Being an only child, this is probably the closest thing to family of men, support
Right.
networking that I had encountered in my life.
Okay. All right. What would you say that at the time that you were attending Chicago Teachers College was the racial percentage at the school at the time?
Oh, I would say 25–30%. May have been a little bit higher, but it was pronounced. I mean, when we entered the lunchroom, we sat on one side of the lunchroom as African Americans, and the whites sat on the other side. But it wasn't. No one made you do that. It was just that we segregated ourselves in that fashion. Right now, I'm chairman of the Leadership Council for the Chicago State University Foundation. We meet every other month,
Okay.
at which time, some of the people were Teachers College graduates, and they were there when some were older than I am. They were there when I was there, and we recall how things were in terms of the racial prejudice that we had to actually live with, because in those days you didn't have that many faculty members who were African American. I think you could probably count them on one hand. Later I went on to teach at Chicago State, so it was interesting to see how those percentages had started to change. Did
you find that your time frame of while you were a student there and being involved with Kappa Alpha Psi, that bond helping you in any way as you matriculated through college?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about the fact that we were able to support each other in terms of having study groups. Because as you know, then and now, grades were very, very prominent, and you remaining as a member of the pledge group, or certainly once you became a member of the fraternity, it was just basically sort of inner, I'm trying to think of the word, it was sort of inner motivation, so to speak, that you wanted to do well.
Okay.
So it was the kind of thing that said, hey, I'm a Kappa man. You just kind of felt good about that.
Right.
I'm a Kappa man, I'm part of a special group, and therefore I want to conduct myself in a way that is going to bring honor, that's going to bring respect, and it's going to bring an appreciation for the fact that I'm a part of this organization.
Okay. Now earlier you mentioned that you met these men on campus, Kappa men on campus.
Right.
Is something you saw in them, or if you knew them prior to the fact that you knew that they were men of Kappa Alpha Psi, what was it that inspired you to become a member of Kappa Alpha Psi?
Well, I tell you, I had been offered opportunities to pledge other fraternities. There were 3 of us on the basketball team, and 3, when I said 3 of us, 3 African Americans at the time. 2 of them were alphas. And so, at the time, they were trying to encourage me to go alpha, okay? My cousin's an alpha. So, that's the only thing that I really had heard about, A5A. But then when I met Maurice Smith and these other guys who were doing some of the things that I really enjoyed doing, and the way they were interacting with each other, I felt that this was special.
Right.
It's a little bit more of a fraternity than anything that I had seen.
Okay. Tell me, how would you define initiation as it occurred as you entered the fraternity?
Painful. No question about it. It was stressful. We know what they were trying to do, and they did succeed in many ways, but it was physical. It was a physical challenge because they were trying to get you to work as a unit, learn how to function as a unit, and to to be very, very aware that you were helping each other, and that if one of you made it, all of you should be making it.
Right.
You know, so you leave no one behind, because that said a lot about your character, that you cared enough about your brother to bring him right along and have them enjoy the successes. And if you failed as a group.
Right.
You know, so that was a very important lesson. As an only child, I only ever thought about, all I ever thought about basically was me, my survival. So it wasn't anything that I was accustomed to, but when I had to recognize, hey, wait a minute, in order for us to make it, we have to do it as a group, then it became extremely important to learn how to help each other, so that because we all had weaknesses,
right.
We all had strengths, and we could capitalize on our strengths and minimize or disguise our weaknesses in front of the big brothers whenever we had to.
Okay. With that being said, tell us what you think about your opinion of the pledge program as you personally knew it versus the intake program that they currently have now.
Well, I think that there's a lot to be said for both sides. I do think that the physical stress is certainly outdated, and it should never be recaptured. But what we need to always be reminded of is not that those things did not make good cavalrymen. There are guys who have come through the intake program who had a goal in mind when they joined the fraternity. They wanted to join the fraternity because they wanted to be a part of something special. They wanted to make a contribution, which is part of what we do to society and our community. So I think that from what I've been able to see, that because we were made in a certain old-fashioned way, and for a longer period of time, I pledged for 9 months. I don't know if, in fact, anyone these days are going to expend that much time trying to become part of an organization. So that 9 months. As a matter of fact, we were ready to quit. I mean, it got to be ridiculous. But so what I'm saying here is the things that were done, I don't think made me more loyal to the bond than what is being done now. I think it's going to be the selection of the individuals who come forward and give them the opportunity to recognize what Kappa Alpha Psi has always stood for, and the vision of the founders and so forth, and to see if they can get opportunities to move forward. And that's why our training program is so critical, more so than the intake or pledge program.
Okay. Now, earlier you spoke about your line, and we'd like to know a few more things about them. You told us about your line number. Those individuals that were online with you, do you still converse with those individuals today?
Yeah, we talk regularly, not as much as we did in the past when everyone was still living in Chicago, but we now with emails, we can email each other. Milton Lopez is in Athens, Georgia, so we email and talk to each other when he's in town. As a matter of fact, he was in town a few months ago. Sam Dennis is very ill. He's in Washington, D.C. But the men who have gone on to Chapter Invisible, Bobby Page and I, because we were both worked for the Chicago Public School, we kept in close contact. Terry Spencer and Skinny Radford. So right now we have 3 men who are deceased. We have Laverne King, Ed Williams, myself here in Chicago, and as I said, Sam Dennis and Milton Lopez. So there are 5 of us who are survivors.
Okay.
And Bobby Page, Eugene Radford, and Terry Spencer have gone on to Chapter Invisible. But it's you know, it was a shocker to see those guys go, because we were all pretty tight. And I saw Spencer maybe a few weeks. He was in Chicago, and I saw him, well, less than a few weeks. It's probably, excuse me, I saw him maybe a week or so before he died. He and I had breakfast together. And we both left town. I was going to Phoenix. He was going back to Maryland. And I got the call while we were out of town. So it was within a week of our last breakfast, and he looked great. That he died just suddenly.
Right. Did any of your line brothers achieve a prominent office within the fraternity or their professional life?
I think I may have been the only one who achieved office in the fraternity when I was Polemarch. But Ed Williams, prominent attorney, CPA. I know Sam Dennis was, before he became ill, was very prominent in Washington, D.C., in the Department of Education there. Milton Lopez is a professor at the University of Georgia. Bobby Page was an assistant principal at the Chicago Public Schools when he died. Terry Spencer was a businessman, and so Eugene Radford had his own ironworks company. So I would have to say that all those guys,
it's great,
did very well.
Okay.
I probably the weakest link.
No, not at all, not at all. Which brings me to the next question, which is because you kind of breezed over it in the beginning when I first asked about. Tell us briefly about different things within your personal and professional life, and you kind of breezed over it a little bit. So let's get back to that, and so that everybody can know about your achievements. Let's talk about your professional life, things that you've achieved up until the time that you've retired, which even now you're still
doing some things, yeah.
Right.
Well, I let's see, I was a teacher. Then I became a language arts consultant. I've written about 6 publications, books. I was part of the White House Conference on Secondary Schools that helped to reshape national curriculum and for the high schools. Then after that, I became an elementary school principal, a junior high principal. I was a high school principal in Chicago Public Schools. Then I became the director for all the high schools in Chicago. There were 75 high schools. Then I became the district superintendent on the west side. I had 50 schools under my supervision. I was chairman of the Education Service Center, bringing in staff development resources from the state. And then after that, I became the general superintendent, CEO in Racine, Wisconsin. So I was in charge of the whole school district there. So I've taught at several colleges, adjunct professor at Harvard University, Chicago State University, DePaul University, Roosevelt University. So
it's not too shabby. You did pretty good.
I've been very fortunate, but when I stop and think about it, I've had some real good fortune. That's good people all along the way.
He's so modest too.
That's right. Well, tell us about. I'm certain that all these things came to you with a lot of hard work, and a lot of the education that you received made these things easier for you. But let's talk about some of the different struggles that you encountered along the way that did not trip you up, but of course you encountered some. And of course this would be something for anyone that would see this video for a source of encouragement for the other brothers to see this, to show that what the different Kappa men actually go through to achieve that next level.
Well, it's really amazing. Again, why the fraternity has been so important to me. And some of the positions that I've held, I was the first African American to be in those positions, and I was the first African American male or female, really, of a high school in Chicago, all-white high school in Chicago. That was 1977. So here I had to go there and work with the Nazi Party, Ku Klux Klan, you know, and it's really important to be able to lean on some brothers and talk to some brothers who are doing different things around the country. Right. So that was great to be able to pick up a phone, to call someone like Lavelle Wilson, who was superintendent out south. He was in Evanston, and then he went, well, not out south, out east. It was just great to be able to have those kinds of resources where you could pick up a phone and talk to some people who were doing some things, had been in your position, or knew the rigors of the job and the kinds of things that you had to do to be a step ahead, because that's what it takes. You have to be a step ahead of the curve in order to make it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what prompted you to run for the office of Polemarch.
I was asked. I was asked. It was pure and simple. I had no ambition to be Polemarch. I thought
you undoubtedly were doing a lot in your professional life at the time.
Yeah, at the time, and I think what happened was I had just retired. I retired in 1997, and so the Polemarch at the time, Lucius Earls, said he thought that I would be a good Polemarch. And, you know, he said, I just think you, at the time I had been, you know, I've been chairman of the picnic committee, and I may have done some other kinds of things, but I had never held a big office in the Chicago Alumni Chapter. For 5 years, of course, even though I was financial, I was up in Wisconsin. I'd only come to Chicago on weekends. But he thought that for whatever he saw in me, he thought I would. I
agree with him.
Good Polemarch. So that's how that happened. I mean, but it wasn't. Trust me, it was not something I was pursuing.
So prior to you attaining that position of Chapter Polemarch for Chicago Alumni Chapter, you mentioned that you had several different committees, but had you ever held an office prior to that?
No.
That's remarkable.
It is remarkable. I don't recommend it.
So, in other words, Brother Earls was not the only person that felt that you would make a good Polemarch.
Yeah. It was a remarkable experience. It was very flattering. You know, it was very flattering. People say, "Hey, man, this is, you know, we know you can do it." They felt that I had been in a leadership position in my professional life, and I tried to bring that same kind of professionalism to the office.
Right.
As you know, that's a very difficult position because you have very strong opinions, a variety of opinions, and you've got to try to orchestrate those opinions and coalesce around some goals and objectives that are in the best interest of the fraternity and what the fraternity is trying to accomplish in the community. So,
well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel as though Kappa Alpha Psi, Training for Leadership, prepared you for that role all those years, or would you be more inclined to say that your professional background throughout the years put you in a position where you were most qualified for that position, or would it be something else?
I think that there's probably a combination of a lot of things. Certainly, being in the position I was in my professional life, serving as a superintendent of schools, where I had to sit on various boards of directors with captains of industry, you know, various social agencies, police department, you name it.
Right.
As part of the community, the mayor, you know. So I had done that when I was in Chicago. I was a liaison to Harold Washington's office from the school district. So when you're involved with that type of interaction, it gives you a pretty good perspective of how you should conduct meetings, how you should try to get the people to give the input so that you are providing the greatest good for the greatest number, which is really our slogan, my slogan anyway. Right. So that's what that was all about. They said, well, hey, you've had these experiences. We think you would be a good person to lead the chapter.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about any recollections that you have of our founders.
Oh, one recollection that is really profound. I met founder Blakemore, but of course Edward G. Irvin was the one I had the most contact with. And the handshake, of course, you know, those guys never pledged. So their handshake was the scroller's handshake. And when I shook hands, you know, I wanted to give him our traditional handshake, and he gave me the scroller shake. And it just blew my mind, because then I realized what was happening. You know, that this man never pledged. He never pledged. So, what a gracious, that's why I did want you to see that video. But what a gracious leader he was, Edward G. Irvin. And I'm so pleased that the foundation is named after him, and that, you know, I'm certainly playing a small role in that. Getting it off the ground, getting our 501c3 and all of that. So.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite Kappa brother?
I think they all are, really. I mean, you two guys here gotta be in that. If I had a short list, fortunately, I have some guys that I would say we have more interaction, you know, in terms of frequency.
Right.
But I get good vibrations with them. I'm not saying it because you two guys are here, but I think you know that. There's certain feelings you get about certain people you're around, and if they're people who have good character, it really kind of comes out. It also, if they have, you get bad feelings about people who really are not about the kinds of things that you would like to see Kappa Alpha Psi advance. So, but a favorite brother, you know, it would be very hard to say, you know, people other than the ones that I associate with a lot, like Alan Smith.
Right.
You know, Alan Smith, he was best man at my wedding. I was best man at his wedding. He's godfather to my kid. I'm godfather to his kid. So it's kind of a situation. We've known each other since, well, I was a Kappa when I met him. That was 1960. So I got made in 59. But he had been around Kappas for so long, people thought he was a Kappa long before he was initiated. He would come to the Kappa House parties, various Kappas would invite him. So it was almost, what is he doing on an intake program or whatever. But Alan is, I would say that based on our frequent interactions.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
and the fact that when I was district superintendent, I brought him aboard as my district administrator because I needed somebody that I could, trust. And it was good to know somebody who, from the days when, we were undergraduates, knew what his philosophy was about education, helping kids, and that type of thing. So
Right.
it was a perfect arrangement.
How would you describe an ideal Kappa from your perspective?
Other than you two guys, if I had to take all of this and mold it, put it together. Well, I would think that an ideal Kappa is one who is extremely self-assured, and not cocky, but self-assured in the sense that he knows what it takes to get the job done and is willing to put the effort into getting the job done. And that's, it may sound simplistic, but I think it's extremely important. Not only is that Kappa man looking at getting the job done, but he also is a caring individual about his brothers. He's a caring individual about family, caring individual about his community, which would include church affiliations and other organizations that are developed and put in place to help the community grow and prosper.
What type of role do you believe the senior Kappas should play in the fraternity?
Well, senior Kappas should always be there to offer advice and to be there to show how it was done successfully in the past, so that if younger Kappas want to aspire to do something, whether it's professionally or not, I'm glad you said that. Don Smith, Dr. Donald Smith, he's in New York now, but he was here, was in our chapter. He was the first director for inner city studies. Don was one of the first people to encourage me to go on and get my doctorate. And it was a response that I didn't expect from him, because I had just graduated with my master's degree. And so he said, I'm feeling pretty good about having, struggled through and getting a master's. And he said, well, what are you going to do next? He says, you got to go on in and get your doctorate. I had never thought about that. I'm ready to sit down and chill. Woo. He said, no. He said, I saw Don recently, and he was in town for, I can't remember what it was for, but we happened to be at the same table. I know what it was for. It was for Brother Weldon Beverly's daughter's wedding. And I don't know if he and Weldon were placed together, but he was in town, and we happened to sit at the same table. And at the reception, I reminded him of that. I told him, I said, Don, do you recall? He was a professor at City Colleges of New York. Don, very sharp, very, very articulate brother. But it was brothers like Don. You looked up to this brother. And here he's saying, so he's telling me I've got it in me to get a doctorate. Or he sees something in me that says, hey, I think you can do some good things here. And those are the kinds of things that I basically have enjoyed about Kappa Alpha Psi, is that, and you're gonna, every now and then you're gonna run into some people who don't fit that mold. But most of the characteristics of Kappas is they want to achieve, they are expected to achieve, but it's not just about them. They want their brothers to also achieve. And that's I think keeps us apart from other organizations. We want all of our brothers to achieve in every field of human endeavor.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because that brings us perfect segue to the next question. Do you believe that we're currently carrying out the vision of our founders as a fraternity?
As a fraternity, that's a tough question. I would think that it's a little bit uneven. The founders, what the things that molded the founders was their closeness, the social climate at the time, and that closeness, that they were just kind of forged together because they didn't have the other kinds of distractions and opportunities. They probably could have done some other things, but they decided to do this. As the fraternity has expanded, you're going to get a lot of good stuff, but you're also going to attract some negative kinds of things that we have to overcome. And by that I mean, I'm trying to answer the question, is that we're never going to be perfect, but the vision of what the founders wanted us to accomplish, that is to make sure that we are nurturing our undergraduates, to make sure that we are bringing people along, young men along in a way that they can take their rightful place in society. I need not tell either one of you that the state of the black man in America is almost at a critical stage. It is at a critical stage, but it's a situation where we could be almost annihilated with drugs, crime, homosexuality, not to mention the kinds of things that we're doing to ourselves in terms of diet and that. So we as a fraternity, if we're going to attack these social ills, we need to really develop greater programmatic thrusts to handle those kinds of things so that we can continue to do those things that the founders laid out for us.
Okay. Tell me what you believe the pros and cons are that exist in our fraternity and in Chicago Alumni Chapter that you believe should be addressed. The most important. Well, the pros.
Give me some examples of what you mean.
What I mean by that is this. What do you see in our fraternity, and likewise in our chapter, that we are definitely on the right track? That you are glad to see a certain direction that's being followed, and likewise, what are the cons that you see that you believe the fraternity as a whole could show some improvement in, and also maybe we can tweak a few things in our chapter that need to be changed?
Okay, I think I'm with you now. What I see happening in terms of positives, I see a lot more community involvement. Maybe that's because I'm beginning to be a little bit more involved in some community involvement, but it is really refreshing and I think encouraging to see so many Kappa men getting involved in things such as the Thanksgiving food baskets and the Christmas toys for tots, and things along those lines, and the things that are being done by the fraternity through the foundation with the Kappa Leaguers and those efforts of scholarships, awards, and things along those lines. I think we could do more, but right now we are in fact doing some things, and we're being recognized for that. I would like to see, in terms of the con, I would like to see a little bit more, I'm beginning to see more competition for the various positions, leadership positions. I think that's good because it gives some choices that guys will have to start thinking about, well, why do I want to be Polemarch? You know, it won't be a situation where I was asked to do it, you know, but I think Frank Walker ran against me, but, you know, and he really wanted the job. But, you know, I don't think either one of us articulated a platform. I had some ideas of, I still would like to get a Kappa house. I had some ideas along the lines of the foundation, which we ultimately put into reality, made it a reality. But that I think we need to be really more aware of, not just numbers, but we want to bring guys in who actually understand what achievement is all about and how to give back to the community. So I think that's something that we'll need to continue to work on.
Okay. Are there any particular issues that you feel as though the fraternity should address in the future?
Well, I think I've basically touched on them. I think that what we have to be more aware of is where are we falling down as a community. And I think we're falling down in terms of family values as a community. So maybe the fraternity needs to do something along the lines of shoring up more family-oriented types of activities. Now, I don't know if you guys were there last year at Dave & Buster's, but I thought I thought that was one of the best activities that we've had for families other than the picnic. But you see, those are the kinds of things. It does a lot for us. First of all, it lets our families understand what we're trying to accomplish. And even though I know we are a clandestine group, and we ought to be, we still need to recognize that none of us are going to do all the things that we want to do without the support of our families. So we've got to, in some way, do more family, not just having a party where you bring your wife, but I like to see some other kinds of Dave & Buster activities where our children can learn a lot more about what the fraternity is all about. Our girls, so they understand what it means to be with a real man, a real Kappa man, and our young men, of course. This is my grandson's picture there. But so they will have an idea of what to aspire toward as they get older. But I think that the current officers are doing a good job. They're already calling me, lobbying for the next positions. You know, and I guess, you know, being a former Polemarch, you know, we do develop a slate. So people say, hey, let me talk to you. I'm letting you know I'm interested in running for this position, and this is really far out in the process. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, those are all the questions that I have slated in advance. And the only other thing that I put out now is anything that's personal that you want to make sure that a certain message or certain idea that you want to make sure that you express for the longevity of Chicago Alumni Chapter. Any questions or anything, any ideas that you have that you want to put out that I didn't express in a question format to you?
Well, no, I can't think of anything. I thought the questions were they were a little difficult now, but they thought-provoking. But I think you covered the subject. So remember, I try to remember what Mark Twain always said: the most painful death is to be talked to death. So I think I've done enough talking.
Okay, Brother Armstead, I appreciate your time.
Hey,
and this will conclude Brother Armstead's video archive for the Chicago Alumni Chapter. Thank you again, brother.
Okay, brother.